Welcome. In the world of automotive refinishing, there's three major players in the world of paint gun manufacturers: Devilbiss, Sada, and Iwata. Today's special guest is Mark Cartier. He works for Devilbiss, and he's an expert when it comes to automotive-related spray equipment and auto body shop solutions. Come inside and see what Mr. Cartier has to say about our world. All right, welcome. Gary from Refinish Media. We have David behind the camera. We have a special guest today, Mark Cartier. Today we're going to talk about Devilbiss and Norton and several other brands that he represents. Mark, welcome on the show. Thanks so much for having you.
Thank you, Gary. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we want to talk at first a lot about guns. I mean, there's three major manufacturers out there. You obviously represent Devilbiss. Devilbiss is considered by many painters as being the premier or one of the best guns out there. What sets Devilbiss apart from, let's say, like a Sada or an Iwata?
Okay, well, to answer that question, you kind of got to go into the history a little bit. So we'll just go very briefly into the history. Back in the early, I should say the late 1800s, there was a Dr. Devilbiss himself. So the name Devilbiss is actually after an individual. It's not something that was thought up.
Yeah.
So Dr. Devilbiss was a doctor of the throat. He was a throat doctor. And back in the time, the only way to put medicine on the throat was with a tongue depressor.
Okay.
So what they would do is they would put cotton around the tongue depressor, swab, soak it in the medicine, and you'd have to stick your tongue out as far as you could, and he would get in there and swab the throat.
Give you a little gag?
Yes.
Gag medicine?
Give you a big gag medicine, away you go. So it was after noticing all the issues that they had with that, he then decided to bring out the atomizer. Okay? And that is, the atomizer is the name of choice that we would use down the road.
So it's like an old school perfume bottle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What kind of medicine did they put in that perfume bottle in those days?
Well, everything. And the reason for that, it would atomize the medicine instead of dipping it in a cotton swab or on that big old tongue depressor. And it would be just like you would do perfume, except you're spritzing it into your mouth. That was the big thing that just was an invention, a bunch of inventions that just put him on the map just because it was so much easier.
Yeah, the story I heard, he actually was painting his basement, and he was using the atomizer, and they were putting like cocaine and tonic water because it would numb. That's what they did in the 1800s. And he was painting his basement. Instead of using like a brush and roller, he said, man, if I modify one of my atomizers, I can actually spray my basement instead of rolling it. And then that obviously changed into, the modern guns that we have today.
Well, I'm not sure where the basement product came into, but I will tell you it was his son that took it a step further. So it was basically with Henry Ford.
Okay.
If we go just a little further up, Henry Ford was painting his cars with a brush.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was his son that noticed it could be a time saving if we did something different. So he took that concept of the atomizer and developed the handheld gun that we kind of know today.
Awesome.
I mean, that's where it all started. Obviously, it was a lot older, and if anybody ever wants to go into the history, you can go on to Devilbiss's website, which is www.autorefinishdevilbiss.com. There's all types of information on new and going back to the history, how things got started, and that's where you'll see it. But it was that change, that deal right there, that got the whole industry started. So you can basically say Devilbiss is the first spray gun manufacturer out there, and they grew to where their manufacturing plant was on Phillips Avenue. I was when I was hired in '89.
Where's that at? Phillips Avenue?
In Toledo, Ohio.
Toledo, okay.
I'm so sorry.
All right.
I don't want to take away from
no,
the
it's
Ohio
all right.
people.
We're Ann Arbor here, so we don't we don't like Ohio. No, just kidding.
But the big plant that you see down there off of Phillips Avenue, and you can actually see it from I-75 as you're cruising down through from Michigan through Ohio. That plant, I was lucky enough when I got hired in '89, it was still doing some manufacturing there.
Wow.
So it stands to this day, even though it's not a manufacturing plant, it has now been diversed into multiple offices.
Cool. So they've been around a long time, 100 plus years.
Yes.
Are they? Where are most Devilbiss guns made at these days? Because I know we don't have, unfortunately, any American-made guns. At least
we do.
Any good ones.
We have some out of Jackson, Tennessee.
Okay.
Okay, and that's a big plant down there
Okay.
that manufactures some of our smaller stuff. But the newer, innovative stuff, such as the DV1, is out of the UK.
Okay. All right, my brother in arms.
Yeah,
You know, we
absolutely.
like the Brits. You know, they fought side by side with us in World War I and World War II, so we liked them.
Absolutely.
David is actually was born over there, so that's why he's a Devilbiss guy.
Sure.
You know, it's got to be better than the Sada
I
Germans,
haven't noticed
right?
the accent though, so he's more
He hides it
Michigan
well. He hides it well.
domesticated.
So obviously, this gun right here, this thing's pretty advanced compared to, because I owned a JGA. That was my first gun that my dad had bought me when I was about 14 years old, and like when I was young, the Binks Model 7, all the old timers, best damn gun they ever made, the Binks Model 7. You ain't telling me any different. Best gun ever made. And that was the gun, you know, that it was still a conventional gun. It you know, had poor transfer efficiency. I mean, if you used it at its peak, what, 20-25% transfer efficiency? But the Binks Model 7, you know, changed the game. And the Devilbiss JGA was really, I don't want to say copy of it. I think it was more of the next generation. But I still own that gun to this day. And, you know, it's a siphon gun. Obviously, can't hold a candle to these modern guns, but it was a great gun. I made a lot of money with that gun.
Well, Binks was a merger some years ago,
Yeah.
quite a years ago, and obviously, again, Devilbiss was the #1 manufacturer of any kind of spray finishing equipment to this back in the day. But the Binks was more known for the woodworking and industrial.
Yeah.
You know, so they got a lot of credibility for how they would apply glues and things of this nature.
Binks is under the Devilbiss umbrella now.
That's correct.
You guys own those guys.
That's correct.
Okay.
And to this day, they still make some because of the way it sprays certain adhesives. You know, and it's just a natural thing. But in the way that companies today are trying to curve and make their corners a little bit easier for manufacturing as well as distribution, they start to limit certain things. That's why you don't see much of it.
So you go to a lot of body shops, right? You
I
call
go to a
on
lot of them.
in probably mainly collision shops, correct?
Very much so.
And
I do
I'm
get
sure,
into some industrial once in a while.
and you do hot rod and restoration shops
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. Okay.
Absolutely.
So in your opinion, when you go into these shops, do you see more gravity-fed guns or siphon guns or pressure pots? What's the #1 gun being used style like in the industry today?
It is the gravity fed.
Why is that? Why is the gravity gun king?
Because it's more forgiving. It's a lot easier to use. When you're
Okay.
talking about a pressure gun, you have different things that you have to go through when it comes to setup. And that's the biggest thing. It's what I refer to as balance. So when you're setting up a pressure gun, there is a delivery thing that you have to go through, which is the pressure from the pot.
Yeah.
And then once you have it coming out the gun, then you have to dial everything in order for it to where it's supposed to spray more efficiently. If you have way more pressure coming out the fluid, the end of the gun with the fluid portion of it than there should be, then the air cap is never going to keep up with that delivery. So a lot of people try to cut the corner by choking the fluid and making it so it gets a little bit squeezier here, if you will, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
But the difference is, for those who don't know, is the fact of the matter is once you start to choke this area
Yeah.
in a pressure scenario, you as well as gravity fed, you start to limit the efficiency of the air cap because no longer do you have a perfect stream coming out of there. A needle can never go into a tip perfect.
People actually choke their guns.
Yes, which is why I find myself being an educator
Yeah.
more so than anything.
I run my guns like I run my cars, wide open.
Which is what we always talk about. Now, with your wide open, we call a full trigger pull.
Yeah.
Very excellent terminology.
That's what we do.
So you basically are backing this out until this trigger stops moving and then bring it back until it just moves forward.
The guys who do the half turn in, like I hear guys that talk like, I run my needle all the way in, then I go 2.5 out.
Right.
If you grab 5 different guns, that full trigger could be 2.5, could be 3.5. So to say that a gun is set up 2.5 turns out from completely depressed, it's crazy.
It's actually doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Your first part of this trigger before it touches the needle is the air, allows air to flow. The rest of it, after it pushes back in, is allowing the needle to come off its seat and allowing fluid to deliver. Now, to answer your question about why do we see more gravity, is because as gravity comes through, that's a set delivery. So we got no choice then to adjust to that delivery. So whatever the viscosity range is, meaning how thick or thin is that fluid that's actually in the cup above the gun, is going to determine how fast that comes out or how slow it comes out, and that's going to adjust everything for us. So a smart painter, I've always said this, a good painter can make a primer gun. spray finish.
Yeah.
And spray beautiful.
The old siphon guns too, not to bag on them, but they relied on the Venturi effect to suck it up through the straw.
Yep.
Those were prone to get clogged. You'd have to clean them more. They would have seals, and people are going to laugh, but I have many, many hours with a siphon. They were prone to banging the cup on the fender or the hood sometimes when you were tired or not paying attention. You don't have any of those issues.
Very good for bringing that up. Very good. So what you have is the upside down version versus the gravity feed. So what does that require? That requires a certain amount of air where the fluid tip extends ever so slightly into the air cap. Okay. And by so doing, it creates a Venturi or a draw effect. That draw effect, if you're not there properly, it's not going to bring it up to the top. And you have to add more air to get it to flow properly. Thus becoming the inefficiencies, because you need a specific tip and a specific amount of air to actually draw it through and bring it to the cap. Now, that's where gravity feed eliminates all that issue, because now it just gravity, you use the mother nature, you use atmospheric pressure to do the job versus going against it to do the job.
I never was good in science, so I don't know what that word means, so I'll have to take your word for it.
No problem. But that's the biggest thing, is it becomes gravities are more proficient because they don't require as much air and they're not blowing it all over the place. Yeah. And you find it still to this day in woodworking industry because the air actually assists the glue to dry.
Well, painters, I mean, we're spoiled. I mean, and you can disagree with me on this if you think I'm making stuff up. And this has probably been true for the last 10 or 20 years. And gun technology is advancing every year.
Every year.
But let's go back even 20 years. If you would have bought a mediocre gun 10, 20 years ago, middle of the road gun, it would blow away any gun from the 1980s or 1970s. And again, I'm not bagging on siphon-fed guns. But if I was to walk into a body shop and see, I don't care if he's a body man, if he's using a siphon-fed gun, if he ain't spraying glue for an interior out of that bad boy, I'm turning around and running.
There's a problem.
I'm running.
You got a problem because your manufacturer, the paint manufacturers are going to have issues with that too. Because and besides, the owner of the shop or the dealership is going to have a huge problem with that because of the use of material. It's going to be really pathetic.
The use of material, that's interesting because that's one of the main topics we wanted to cover. Let's say I go into Harbor Freight and I buy one of their guns for $50, $100, believe it or not, they have $200 guns there, and they don't spray bad.
No, not at all.
And then I go out and I buy a top of the line DV1, which I don't know, what are they, $700 ish on the street, maybe?
$895.
Okay, yeah, but on the street we can get them cheaper. But okay, what is the difference between, let's say, a $200 low end Harbor Freight gun and then a $800-900 DV1?
It's reliability.
Okay,
pure and simple reliability. Plus, there's no representation to secure that sale after the sale. It is typically just a throwaway gun.
Okay.
Now, any good painter that just typically buys a Harbor Freight gun, maybe he's new to the industry. Maybe he wants to test the waters to see if this is something he wants to do. Believe it or not, those type of guns right out of the box are very decent. You know this to be true.
Sometimes.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, yeah.
But again, it's a good way to test the waters.
Yeah.
All right. But a true professional, it's like steel versus, steel chainsaw versus Craftsman, if you will. There's a huge difference between the two and the way they perform and the way they operate.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is reliability or performance from a manufacturer of a spray finishing equipment versus a copycat. And let's be real, that's what they are.
Yeah.
They're Chinese copycats, and they're either going to be patterned off a solder or off a Devilbiss typically.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, you're never going to be able to put a Devilbiss cap on it, but they've copied it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
My problem is people think that it's a life hack. Here, let me show you. I don't need an $800-900 gun. I've got this gun for $300. If you paint a couple cars with that $300 gun, it actually costs you more money to use the cheaper gun. That's assuming the gun sprayed good, because some of them do, some of them don't.
Yep.
And people always go back to I got a lifetime guarantee. I'll just take it back. Okay, cool. You can do that. But if you run that knockoff gun and you do, let's say, 3 or 4 paint jobs, we were talking about it before the show, the transfer efficiency is that cheap Harbor Freight gun is going to cost you more money than the expensive, DV1. I mean, some of these kits of clear now are $1,000 for a kit of clear. And I mean, do you want 25% material hitting, or do you want up to 90% material hidden.
Well, that's exactly the argument.
Yeah.
And what you probably will find, anyone that's buying a Harbor Freight gun, is typically spraying out of his barn.
Yeah.
Or his garage at home. And again, he's testing the waters. But anybody who is going to be in a professional business as a painter in our industry, meaning aftermarket, or, for his own self at a shop or for whatever, at a dealership, there's concern with that individual bringing in a Harbor Freight gun.
Yeah.
And yes, it's going to use more material. It's not going to be as reliable. It's not going to be consistent either. And I'm talking about metallic finishes. I'm talking about blends, about looking at things. So the painter's actually going to struggle more to try to make that one cheap gun do the job for him.
Yeah. So is it true if I said that the DV1s are the top of the line in the Devilbiss family?
In our Devilbiss family, as well as in this marketplace, it is the #1 gun out there. Absolutely.
And you have a black one here.
Yes.
What's the black one for?
So basically, and David, is that about the right spot? Okay. So the black one is basically signifies this is our clear coat gun.
Okay.
Okay. Now when the Devilbiss, and forgive me, I didn't have it. I got a lot of demos out there in the field.
You can put a picture up of the other one.
Yeah.
So you got a black one, you got a silver one. What's the difference between the two?
Silver one was when it was launched with a blue insert here.
Okay.
Is the base coat gun.
Okay.
Okay. That comes with a B plus cap.
Okay.
Okay. And that is a phenomenal base coat for today's finishes. We can get into that more. But the black one is typically the clear. Now, Devilbiss decided to try a little thing, and it's hooked up pretty good, where they basically make both guns black, and they change the center.
Okay.
So this portion right here, if it's gold, it's clear. If it's blue, it's base.
All right.
And it's just a matter of the different air cap that it has on the gun itself.
So is there different air caps for these guns? Can I buy different fluid tips and air caps and stuff for these guns too?
Very good. You have from a 1.2 up to a 1.4 typically. You got, and in some cases, certain manufacturers like BASF requires a larger tip.
Okay.
And we actually designed a specific air cap. It's called the A+ air cap.
All right.
And that A cap will handle their water so much more proficiently than our normal base coat B+ cap.
So depending on, if I worked at a shop and I was using PPG and my buddy across town was using BASF and I was using solvent and he was using water or vice versa, is I could interchange the fluid tip and the air cap to maybe better suit the product I was spraying and/or my style?
In almost every case, other than BASF,
all right,
you're going to use the same cap for solvent as well as water.
Okay.
Yes, BASF is the only one that we engineered a cap for their water because it was so different, if you will.
Just thicker?
And it was different.
Okay.
I can't really bring it into the specifics, but it was different. And our engineers got together with them, and they actually designed an air cap specifically for that, and it works tremendously well. Anything to do with water as well as solvent, the base coat DV1 will do a phenomenal job.
Most guys are rocking a 1.2, 1.3, or a 1.4 tip. Isn't that what we said earlier? What's the most popular in that order?
It depends on the manufacturer of what you're spraying, and
what do you see? 1.3 most common?
1.2, 1.3.
1.2, 1.3?
PPG, for instance, when you had Jeff here.
Yeah.
Jeff Matouche, he will tell you a 1.3 with their Enviro base at about 18 to 20 PSI, believe it or not. Okay. Now, you get to Exalta, you can start as low as 10 PSI with their Chroma Premier.
Okay.
As low as 10. I've got guys spraying at 10 right now with that cap, with that air cap at a 1.3 tip.
All right.
And just a smoking phenomenal finish. Very happy. Again, every painter's different because where they find their balance of how they spray. And I say that because Devilbiss is engineered at 7 inches from substrate, but a lot of guys like 5 and 4. And I mean, that's going to change little things different. That's why we have different tips, different strokes for different folks, if you will. And that's going to matter. And so by including all 3 tips, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, it allows the painter to hone into himself on his habits.
You know, your buddies, those German company, if you were to change the air cap, you have to change the air cap, the fluid tip, and the needle. It's a match set. And I have not priced one in forever, but the street price on a 5500 RP digital is over $1,000 now.
Yes.
And back when they were like $600, I was going to go from a 1.3 to a 1.2, And I said, well, I'll just buy the kit. I'm not going to buy another gun for $600.
That's correct.
I got the price on the kit. It was $400. We're talking 20 years ago. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'll just buy the whole. I'll just buy another gun. I'll keep this gun as my sealer gun or whatever. I'm not gonna, pay that kind of money.
And you just talked about one of our best sales pitches. Well, is right there.
That's one of the things. Like when you guys came out with Tekna, and I know Tekna's gone, but I think we should still bring it up. One of the sweet things is like with our primer guns, is most collision shops are spraying a bare metal primer and then a high build primer, and there's a lot of idiots, and I'll call them idiots, that are using like 1/8, and they're spraying their etch or their epoxy or whatever, their water through it, and then they're spraying the urethane through it, and they're wondering why they're getting excessive build. Well, because, and again, I don't know what paint line we're talking about, but I'll talk about the paint line that I use. With my etch, with my waterborne, with my epoxies, I should probably be spraying a 1.6 max, maybe a 1.4. But I mean,
with today's finishes,
yes. Nobody's back in the day. Nobody's going to go out and buy 2 or 3 primer guns because you're spraying 2 or 3 primers. I mean, we're stupid and lazy and all that. But the great thing about the Tekna line, and it carried over to the
which
DV1,
is the GPG now.
Yeah, you spend the I don't know. We were paying $50 or less. You buy the new air cap. Or I'm sorry, the fluid tip, the air cap and needle would work, and I could go from a 1.5 to a 1.6 to a 1.8 to a 2.2 or whatever I wanted, like that.
That's exactly correct.
And we still use it to this day. I got some old Tekna primer guns that I still to this day use.
And if you're spraying with the Tekna, typically it's a 77 air cap, which is still made to this day under the GPG window. Now, to back up just to make sure to understand, let everybody know out there.
Yeah.
SOD is a fine company. SOD is a fine organization. We're not here to totally trash them, but their biggest flaw is their unwillingness to create and design something that they say can be replaced by itself, which means just the air cap. If you drop an air cap today, I mean, if you bend that horn, that's done, as you already know. If you drop a fluid tip, and you mess up the tip itself just by accidentally dropping it, it's done. The precision cut of everything today, the way it's made, is so precise that you throw it off a little bit, it's going to cause that pain or aggravation and headaches. So that's the biggest problem with my competition, is that they force you into a whole kit.
Are you telling me that the Germans over-engineer things?
Are
you
certainly
trying
like
to say that? Yeah, because I've worked on a lot of German cars, and they seem real simple.
They're very good equipment, very good products. However, we make equipment for the average working man.
Yeah, I like that.
So that it's going to last.
We need the line from Tommy
It'd
Boy.
be easy to work on. Exactly.
From that, because that's what I am, the imagine working man. No, just kidding.
That's perfect. And I hope everybody out there understands this. There's a reality here.
Yeah.
To just equipment shouldn't be difficult or expensive to replace if you have that happen. And again, it's all about representation, okay? There's fine organizations out there, representatives of the Devilbiss equipment throughout the whole world that you can get in contact with or find them and look them up online. It's very hard for my competition to actually have an individual that will go today to a shop and actually fix his equipment. He won't do it. He'll tell you to send it. I, on the other hand, have done this for years. I know each and every piece of equipment that's made. I can do it in the back of my head while I'm sleeping, if you will. There's a few things I don't remember. That's one of them. Yeah. But a lot of things I can do is also
because you're getting older.
Is fix things on the fly. I've actually helped guys understand their equipment just over the phone. So those are the things that comes with time and experience. Yeah. But it also comes with a piece of equipment that's easy to work on.
No, that's the funny thing is how I met you is you were working for Ken Root Sales.
That's correct.
And you were, at the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're pushing Norton. We were 3M shop.
Yep, 18 years
You were pushing Devilbiss.
Correct.
We were diehard
from day
SATA.
one. Yep.
So, and we get a lot of salesmen that come in and, hey, we're 3M, we're SATA, we're Devilbiss, we're whoever, trying to push their stuff. And in most cases, we don't have time for those guys. I mean, especially when they're not selling the stuff that you're wanting to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is that, and I'm not saying this because you're sitting here, and I'm not saying this because we're on camera.
Yep.
If he was an asshole, I'd say he was an asshole. But anyway, we started buying from Mark because when he said he was going to drop off a gun, he did. When he said he was going to fix a gun, he did. When he said, and what I liked about him is, 99 out of 100 times you could always answer our questions.
Mm-hmm.
But the 1 out of 100 you couldn't ask, and I always had a problem with anybody with this, but especially jobbers, they would lie to you because they didn't want to seem stupid.
Right.
And that's the one thing I'll give you credit for is you said, you know what? Let me double check on that and I'll call you tomorrow. Because usually I don't need to know right then on the spot anyway. But I caught some of, let me say, your competition telling me stuff, and then I'm passing it off as truth. And then, of course, I always have to double check everyone because I'm OCD like that. I figured out they lied to me. And, dude, that was one of the problems we had with BASF. We were going to switch to BASF once upon a time, and we caught them telling us things that weren't true.
Yeah,
and I warned them. I said, look, we can't do this. And they did it again. And I was like, you're dead to me. You're dead to me.
Well, you know, Gary, I appreciate your kind words, but I've always followed.
They weren't supposed to be kind. I was just being honest.
Let's let it be that way. But I've always passed this on to everybody I deal with, and you might know this. I may have mentioned it to you, Dave. I can't remember if I said it to you, but you know, I live by the 3H rule, which is always be honest, hardworking, and humble.
I like that.
Those 3 things will take you everywhere you want to go in life, and as well as business. So,
those are good rules
if you follow that, it was the biggest thing. I always was proud of myself with when I was with Kenwood Sales is that, as you know, I had a van full of stuff.
Yeah.
And I always had that old van, but it was a working vehicle. You know, it did what it's supposed to do. And I had bins in there. So whenever somebody needed something or go over it and they needed it right away, or they wanted to look at something, I was very proud of myself. I could walk out to that vehicle and pull it out of the ride.
What are you driving now? A new Cadillac Escalade?
I'm driving a nice 2023 Rogue.
Okay.
You know, for Norton.
That van you drive, did you ever have any students or shop workers ever back into that van?
Oh,
like
sure.
In a body shop? I had a student once who said, hey, man, you're a Devilbiss guy. What's his name? Mark Cartier? And I said, yeah. He goes, I met him the other day. I said, man, good guy. What do you think? He goes, well, I backed into his van when we were at work. And I'm like, oh, dude.
Young man was in a hurry.
Yeah. I was like, are you serious?
I remember that to this day. And that dent, you know, it was nice. The body tech actually took the panel off and we beat the intrusion beam out a little bit. But the dent's still there to this day. And I actually have that vehicle that's got 320, almost 330,000 miles.
He's like, I was waiting to talk to him about a gun, and then I ran into his van, so it made the first meeting kind of awkward.
No, it was all good. You know, that had enough miles on it to call it quits anyways, but I was so tight I wanted to keep going with it because it was making me money.
Yeah.
And so when he did it, I wasn't overly upset. He was a good dude. Yeah. He was a good kid.
So most people don't know this. Like when the first generation of guns, and I'm not talking 1800s or even 1900s. Let's go to, you know, the 50s or 60s. You know, we're using what we would call conventional guns. They were siphons. And on the street we call them air hogs or air dogs. Because
they had to be.
Yeah, and I mean you're you know, like most guns now, I mean, like your old Techna Coppers, they had 22 PSI max on their 77 air caps.
Yes.
Well, you know, I mean, a big gun now is, you know, maybe 30. Well, hell, back in the day, you were kicking at 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds. So you needed the compressor, the overspray. But the problem is the transfer efficiency was shit.
Horrible.
And like, they say like, oh, these guns are capable of 90% transfer efficiency. Capable.
Yes.
A Corvette is capable of 18 miles a gallon too, but it depends on how you drive it.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody cared back in the day because, you know, especially before 1973, the OPEC oil embargo, paint was cheap. You buy a damn gallon of red for $5. Life was good. But the whole transfer efficiency of 25% transfer efficiency or less in most cases, when paint started to go up and petroleum products and everything, the HVLP started to play out.
Low pressure.
It didn't start out well.
No.
Where's the HVLP at today? What's the pros and cons of an HVLP today? Because there's another class of guns too that we can talk about.
Absolutely.
In a minute.
Well, and excellent for that analogy. Also, don't forget about the environment, how bad all that overspray going up the stack into our atmosphere. You know, there's legitimate ozone, deterioration because of some of that. So that's when OSHA got involved, and that's where HVLP originally truly started.
Okay.
But how it evolved in the very beginning, and the guy I worked for, I used to do. I mean, when I first started too, we had these. It was basically a giant vacuum cleaner with a hose that was like a reversed wet or dry vac.
Yeah.
It was a compact little sucker, and it had a hose going to a gun, and that was high volume, low pressure. So basically, what does high volume, low pressure stand for? High air at a low pressure.
Okay.
You got a high volume of air and low pressure. So what was capable of
So
doing
good
that?
transfer efficiency with less air consumption.
Yes. Well, you hogged a whole lot of air
Okay.
at a low pressure.
Okay.
So you're basically compensating for all that high pressure with volume of air to help atomize.
Okay.
And so that was the thing. That was the big thing back then. And I mean, everybody wasn't quite forced to go to it, but we started to initiate that. And it was very short-lived because it was very bulky.
Painters hated it. Painters hated it.
You couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
So something had to change very quickly.
Yeah.
And that's when GTI hit the field.
Okay. Yeah, I remember. I still have a GTI kicking around.
That's
somewhere.
exactly right.
It's funny too because I still show the GTI, the Plus, and some of the Technas, and a lot of people go, "Why are you showing that? That's old school technology." You're right. There's old school technology, but there's a million of them out there.
Yes.
If you want to talk about a cheap gun, and I don't mean cheap in how it operates or anything like that, but I mean you can still buy some of those guns for $400 or less, brand
Absolutely.
new. They're still kicking out there, and I remember that. I'm not a huge fan of HVLPs. I'll be honest with you. I do use HVLP for candies and metallics and pearls. I'm not using HVLP for primer. I'm not using it for clear. I'm not using it for sealer. I'm not using it for single stage. But I do like HVLPs for metallics, candies, or pearls.
Yes.
The GTI was a good gun, but the gun that really kind of opened my eyes back up to Devilbiss was that damn Plus gun.
The Plus gun. Very, very
that
good.
Plus gun was the still this day.
Yes.
That Plus gun is bad to the bone.
So to this day, GTI is still made.
Yeah.
And Plus gun is still made.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really?
Because they were so bulletproof.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll find them. You'll find them in our wares, if you will, our warehouses and stuff until they're gone. Now I should back up.
Yeah.
They're being replaced with GPG.
Okay.
You know, the Techna got replaced with GPG.
Okay.
And
What's GPG?
Gravity paint gun.
Gravity paint. You guys always got to think of all these new words and stuff. I just, so I got to get the Techna tattoo removed.
A lot of guys did that.
I don't know what to do about it.
That was a good name, and it's unfortunate it went away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But everybody likes to evolve. You know, Devilbiss is now owned by a company called Carlisle, and they wanted to put their own dressing on the cake, if you will, or the hamburger. And make it look the way they want it to look.
What do you think Joe Schmo can buy a GTI or a Plus gun for brand new on the street today?
If he found a brand new one,
what would be your range?
The hard part is parts.
Yeah.
So if he does it,
if he
realizes that you can't
make a billion
make
of those, hell, I got 100 parts for those guns if you need it.
Okay, if you can get it. But I would say if you found a brand new one on the street, you could probably still to this day get it for between $400 and $500. And I'm telling you the truth there because look at what the guns are going for today.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a workhorse. Those are workhorse guns.
So it's funny because
again, that's brand new.
Yeah, brand new.
Used is typically going to be between 85 and 150.
Yeah.
All depends on what it is.
I mean, I love the Plus gun because it was designed to be sprayed between 30 and 40 PSI, monster fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I mainly used it. I mean, I used it for sealer too, but I mainly used it for clear and single stage, and that would just do a smackdown, especially if
it's a workhorse.
Yeah, I'm a very aggressive style painter. I don't like HVLPs, like I said earlier, and the Plus gun was everything that I wanted. And
it did what it was supposed to do with high efficiencies. And by the way, back up just for a second.
Yeah.
GTI, the standard there, the strict adhesion we had to adhere to was OSHA rules.
Yeah.
And those are 65% transfer efficiency, which means 65% of a gallon of paint needs to be on the vehicle, not up to stack. And to do that, you had to maintain a certain pressure, 10 PSI. Yeah. And you had to stay at 30 or below.
Yeah.
Now, and Devilbiss engineered their caps, if you went above 30, would split the fan.
Yeah.
So in layman terms, that means the center would go away and you'd get these
heavy
zebra
on
stripes.
the top and the bottom.
So that forced them to bring it back to where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
The Plus gun was an advancement to the GTI, so that then allowed us to be more forgiving.
Yeah.
So with lower pressures, we atomized better.
Yeah.
And we were dealing with more of the normal pressures we dealt with, but it was the engineering through the air cap that made that gun.
I mean, this
isn't
true in every case, but maybe it is. I think most painters out there, if they can spray, a TE gun or whatever, are going to lean towards that until they get to base coats, and that's where they're going to start getting with their HVLPs.
It's very, very hard to determine what's transfer efficient and what's HVLP today.
Yeah,
I mean, it truly
it's confusing.
is. Yes,
Yeah,
and they're spraying both so very much the same as far as forgiving.
Yeah,
today's guns are forgiving.
Yeah,
and they're just wonderful pieces of engineering.
So the old guns, obviously, they ate more air.
Yes.
So you would need more air compressor, more overspray, waste more product. And then you have these new guns like HVLPs that they had superior transfer efficiency. They consumed less air, created less overspray, and their only drawback was they were slow. Like if I had my old, Devilbiss JGA and I put it against a GTI and I was painting a car, my old school gun would not be better, but it would be faster than this HVLP.
That's correct.
Painters, because we like to bitch about everything, we're prima donnas for a reason. Then you guys or the industry came out with this third group of guns. And a lot of there's different names for it. A lot of people call it a hybrid, or they call it a TE. Sada calls it an RP, obviously.
So what did that do?
Yeah,
that allowed a painter to do exactly what he would do conventionally, but at transfer efficient, but yet be much faster than a high volume low pressure.
So I get my cake and eat
so
it too.
You basically, as a salesperson, you just did the whole thing. Yeah. You were able to go faster and more proficient and get the same outcome. And what is making money in a body shop all about? Time. Yeah. So anyway.
So, I mean, you still get the transfer with these TE guns, these hybrids, whatever you want to call it. You still get the transfer efficiency of an HVLP, but you get the speed.
You get the
in the style that I was used to with the conventional.
That's correct.
But I'm not eating the air. I'm not as much air. So it's a win-win.
It's a big win-win. And again, the compressor is a big thing to remember, because so many people, they don't take that into for granted. If you have a low-end compressor, then it's going to work so much harder, and those are where other issues will come into a shop, such as fish-eyeing problems, because the oil's blowing past the rings. They're just working so hard, and it's getting so hot, and just people don't understand what it requires. So the smart body shop today is going to have a compressor large enough to support just about everything it needs. And actually, they're more and more going away from pistons, and they're going to the screw style. That's a whole nother segment.
So I'm sure you know this. If I wanted to go out and I wanted to buy a new Sada today, I obviously have to decide, let's say their top dog is the 5500.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do I want to buy green or blue? Obviously green is HVLP, and then the blue is their hybrid, if you will. They call it the IRP. So I got to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got to decide, do I go digital or non-digital? And I mean, once upon a time, the digital, non-digital was $100 difference.
Yes.
Now I think it's like $250. So then I figured that out.
I believe it's still in the gun handle itself.
Yep, still in the gun handle.
They had issues. And again, not to knock on Sada, nice piece of equipment. You still made a worthy purchase. It's just that what you bought is not going to always last like it should, the way it does. That's the reason why we put the gauge here externally.
If you're going to buy a Sada, though, and here's my point, you got to know exactly what you want. So the whole HVLP, non-HVLP, that I think the average painter can figure that out.
That's correct.
The digital, non-digital, that's not hard to figure out. But then you got another one, the cup, not a cup. Oh, you can get into that later or whatever. But I mean, those cups could be $100 a piece now. But that's not a deal breaker.
They absolutely can be.
But here's where it gets really expensive, and here's where a lot of people mess up. Is now you got to decide you want a 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. If you're wrong, you can't change the fluid tip over like you can with the Devilbiss. But it's even more complicated, and this didn't show up to the 5500s. The 5000s and 4000s weren't like this. Is now, you want an eye or you want a no air cap? You're like, what? Like that's a lot. That's a lot of choices.
That's a lot of going on. Yeah. So, and again, that requires some good selling.
Yeah.
Good understanding of your equipment. And again, that goes to what I was saying. We're a little bit more forgiving, a little bit easier to use, a little more user friendly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a professional painter and you've been painting for 40 years or whatever, I think the average painter could answer that question. I don't think the average hobbyist can answer all those questions.
Not one
honestly.
bit. That's why most of them buy a Harbor Freight.
That's confusing.
They just plug it in and go. So that is excellent points. All that going for you. But again, that sales pitch you made a little while ago when you were talking about conventional versus the other. I mean, you could actually be a good you are a salesperson.
I bought stock in Devilbiss
There you
recently,
go.
so this is why I'm saying this.
So the biggest selling point, one of the biggest selling points again for Devilbiss is there somebody there to help you? Number one. Is there somebody there to help you figure out what the problem is? There's usually people just a phone call away. But how easy is it to fix the gun, and what's it going to cost you?
Parts
and
are cheaper.
I mean, that's the pride we take with Devilbiss
No,
equipment.
I agree, and I love the black finish on the gun and stuff. And I mean, you know, I love the way that it feels. I admit,
that famous
when the Technic came out, the first one, or I shouldn't say the first one, the copper, because the chrome was technically the first one.
Excellent.
But
you want to digest that one a little bit?
Nah, because you guys don't sell anymore. What's the point?
Well, I mean, how we have evolved into the copper.
Well, I
know about that.
Yeah, oh yeah, the coating,
the coating, peeling.
But I still tell people to this day, and some people disagree with me, and I'm like, if you want to buy a good gun, a starter gun that's still professional grade, get a hold of a damn Technicopper with a 77 air cap and just rock a 1.3. I'm a 1.2 guy. I'll admit.
That's correct.
And people go, why are you telling people to buy a 1.3? Because I think it's like a general tire. It meets people's needs better.
Sure.
But like when you first gave me one of those guns, I had it for like a week and I was trying it because I went from a plus to that. Hated it. I hated it.
You went from the plus to the copper.
I hated it.
Oh my gosh, that was just a matter of understanding.
No, that's exactly what it was. Yep. And I used it, and you were trying to tell me, no, let me go spray it, and if I got questions, I can't, my attention span's this long. Yeah. I can't listen to all this shit. Just let me test drive it. If I got questions, I'd call you. So anyway, I tried it for like a week or two, and I hated it. And then I was actually talking to a buddy. And every time I talk to like a former student or a buddy, I'm like, hey, what are you guys spraying? Oh, water solvent. What gun? Oh, yeah, what pressure? What tip? What, I'm always grilling them. And so he said, oh, yeah, I'm using that Technicopper. And I'm like, oh, yeah, what are you doing this? What are you doing that? What air pressure? So he kind of ran me through his setup. Yep. And I tried it again, and it was me. And I loved it. And I sprayed it for a whole summer.
And that's how I and that's how I learned, too, is from people like yourselves. Yep. Because I found that the newer high solid PPG clear, it was well more sprayed better. I guess I'm kind of butchering that.
Better butter.
It was a much better proficient gun at a 1.5.
Yeah.
With that clear because it was so heavy. And by the way, today copper obviously just to kick back isn't made anymore. Yeah. Obviously the copper gun is gone, but we use the term GPG because the copper gun was known for its 77 air cap. That's the
legendary
one. So now we have GPG that supports 77, TE10, and TE20. Okay. So that if you know what air cap you've played with before, NPR10, then you know what gun you can get with the GPG.
That's the cool thing though about, and I don't want to keep beating this to death, but seriously, unless you've put hundreds of hours behind this gun with that tip and this air cap and this setup, you don't know what works best for you. And are you doing solvent or water? Just what works for me may not work for you.
That's right.
The cool thing about this setup, though, is you can buy different air caps for relatively inexpensive. You could trade with your buddy for the weekend, and you can slowly figure out what you like the best. Because, I mean, to spray a 1.4 tip with sealer or clear, that blows my mind. That's what we were doing in like the late 80s, early 90s. And I know a lot of guys that are rocking 1.4 tips, and you brought up the 1.5. To me,
for the clear,
it blows my mind that anyone would do that. But products change.
Yep.
Guns change. They're getting
100%.
thicker, the higher solids. And you can't just be stuck with, well, I've sprayed a 1.2 since 1990, and that's what I'm going to do till I die. You have to be able to experiment a little bit.
And Gary, that's why all painters today should not graduate their best gun that they were spraying with when it became bad to become now their sealer and primer gun, just because it's in their arsenal and they want to use it. Sealer and primer is a foundation, is where it starts. And if that's not applied properly, then your whole stuff is a lot harder to deal with.
I think it's in the union bylaws, though. When you buy a new clear gun, your old clear gun goes to being single stage or sealer. I don't think you can retire it or sell it.
No,
Or it could be your backup clear gun.
but there's so many people I see out there that you got this beat up piece of shit that's spraying primer and sealer.
Yeah, that's stupid.
And they just think that that's the way that way they don't have to get rid of it. But today's, you know, the cost of some of these, like the GPG to get you started, that's going to be so much more forgiving than obviously jumping into a DV1 or something.
I just bought a kit of PPG's Top Dog urethane. It's in their NXT line. NXT is the new Deltron. It's replacing DBC or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And like to buy the catalyst, which is a quart, a gallon of primer, and then I bought a gallon of reducer, even though I don't use it. The damn new 4 Series DT reducer is over $100 a gallon. I'm not talking list price, but I bought a kit of it, and it was like $400 or $500 for a kit of that. And my point is you're right. There was a time, and there's still a lot of dum-dums out there that are still spraying their $25 Harbor Freight gun out of primer because it doesn't matter. It's going to take you 20 hours to sand the whole car down instead of 7 because you didn't lay it out right. And then you had 25% transfer efficiency instead of 50, 60, 70, 80.
Yes.
You can't afford to use the cheap gun. The cheap gun is too much money,
and that's
in my opinion.
And that's why a good counter salesman at a paint store should understand that and just kind of sometimes ask the person. I've been to them stores.
Yeah.
I've been to them stores when I've seen a quart and a pint kit go for, $400.
Yeah. Quart of candy,
and I'm just blown
up.
away. So that's an opening for me to ask the painter. I said, what are you using? What are you spraying that with?
Well, I'm only going to paint one car. Cool. Okay. Borrow a gun. Rent a gun.
Yes.
Seriously. Are you only going to paint one car? Borrow a gun, rent a gun.
Let me allow you to demo so you can actually open your eyes and see the experience that everybody else knows about.
I just think buying the cheap guns is dumb. But
it's not a good idea. And by the way, very quickly, there are fake guns out there in the market now.
What?
Yes.
Didn't you just recently come across
a fake DV1 gun that a poor painter, won't mention the poor guy's name, but he bought
What's his name and what shop does he work at?
He bought a used DV1 base coat gun that was the silver one.
Yeah.
And it looked identical. And the DuPont, that shows you where my head is, Exalta rep called me and he says, hey, I got a friend that's got just bought a gun online. And he says, it's leaking air. Could you help him with it? Because it's the new DV1. I said, sure. I says, if it's leaking air, just get the part and I'll help him fix it.
Yeah.
I go there to help him fix it. And I'm wondering why the part is so much different after I start taking everything apart. The biggest thing I wouldn't have realized is when I put the new kit back in, the air valve kit, and I put the heel on. This is from our kit now because all those parts were different looking, but I figured they're going to work. Well, guess what? Once I stuck that new part where the adjustment cap for the needle, it would not thread on. So
internally it was different?
I thought to myself, well, there must be a burr on this thing.
Yeah.
I chased that son of a bitch for I can't tell you how long. I went to every part store. I went to a hardware store just trying to find a file to get it to start. It wasn't until I gave up and I said, I'm going to just put it back together for the guy because this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And as I'm putting it back together, I barely tightened it and it just broke. And then I could see it's pot metal with fake chrome, with crappy chrome. Then I realized, I looked at the gun closer, the whole thing's fake.
Yeah.
But it looks identical to DV1. So those online purchases, everybody, be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful what you're doing because that $300 investment you thought was a great deal now just became a trash can.
You get people who, like in America, who complain about they bought a gun online and then the digital readout is in bars and not PSI.
That's happened.
And how do I change it over? Do people complain about that a lot?
Very good, Gary. I would take care of that for them.
Can you change it over?
No,
or you just swap the whole thing?
You get the gauge.
Okay. All right.
As a fact, from the factory, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
Which means they put the wrong one on.
Well,
bars versus PSI.
Well, what people are doing, and I know some painters that have done this, is they'll get online and they'll buy it from some like European or offshore company because it was $20 cheaper, or the model came out a week before or whatever, and they shipped it in. And then now they have a chart in their paint booth that goes, 1.3 bars is this PSI. I know those guys.
I did have one happen. I still remember this day where it didn't get sorted properly, and it actually was bought through a supplier, properly done.
But you get to see all of it. You guys sell and deal with so many guns, like one popping up here or there. Like that's just the way it is.
Yep.
The one other product, and I know that there's a new replacement, but I think the one that most people are going to be familiar with is you guys carry a product called the DAD 500.
Yes.
We call it the Dad 500 on the street.
Everybody still does.
So
Now it's a Dad Pro. By the
Dad
way.
Pro. All right.
Yes.
So, I mean, depending on how it's set up, it's, 800 on the low, maybe 1,200 on the high. Some people want more for it. And again, I'm not talking MSRP. Sorry. I'm talking street price last time I looked it up.
Very good.
And so what I've noticed, and maybe Dave can pop a picture up. I'll pause for a picture. No. So it's got the original one, or the original configuration. It's got like 2 chambers and then a big ass tube. So those first 2 chambers, what do those do in layman's terms?
In regards to our DAD 500?
Yeah.
So the first is an air filter. And
Okay.
it's a very well used one to this day. It's the
Okay.
130041 part number.
Okay.
That is one of our best selling.
That's your water trap?
That is
the
a
first
water
one?
trap.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what's the second filter in that bad boy?
The second one is the oil coalescer.
Okay. Whoa.
Okay,
Whoa.
so-
There's that very word. So that's the oil filter?
That's going to take away oil.
Okay.
Not
Not
filter
filter.
it.
It's got
It. It's going to filter out oil.
The oil taker weigher.
Yes.
And then the big one at the end.
Is the desiccant tank.
So that's the stuff that comes in my tennis shoes and my beef jerky.
Those are the small beads that
Okay.
absorb more the rest of the water that was missed by the first 2 stages.
Okay.
Okay. So
And I think a lot of painters overlook the fact that, and again, well, I'm not spraying waterborne, so I don't need to have to. There's 2 kinds of water in our air. There's the humidity in our shop,
Correct.
which, I can't really control that, but I can control the water and the contaminants that are coming through my line in my gun. And for those guys that are spraying in pole barns or whatever, and I've done this, plugged in my gun, water shoots out like a damn sprinkler, or my cutoff wheel, is one that's very harmful to our tools. It really hurts the life. But think about if you're spraying like a bare metal primer, and that water is mixing with your primer, and you're basically impregnating that water on raw steel,
Yep.
and it's rusting your car out.
and you'll actually see it in your clear. It looks like a
Yeah.
cloud.
Yep.
So let's talk about that very quickly. So where is that water coming from? That's typically coming from the condensation factor of the humidity being pulled in and into your tank, and the cooling factor on its way to the gun.
Yeah.
So it depends on how hard the compressor works, but the condensation is basically like a still. It's taking the water and condensing it back into it takes the vapor and condenses it back into a watery substance. And if you don't have the right filtration, the proper filtration, or the proper drainage, yes, in most cases, the hose is the cooler or the condenser, and it takes it right to the gun.
Yeah.
And that's why filters are so important.
Yeah.
Yes, water traps, coalescers, so important.
And I think it's money well spent. And again, I don't care what brand, what model you buy or whatever, but I already said the prices are out there. I mean, I'm buying impact guns and stuff for $500 or more. I'm buying paint guns that are close to $1,000.
Yes.
Not only is it going to save the wear and tear on my tools, it's not going to rust my car out because I'm basically spraying water. It's not going to affect my clear, my primer, my base.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think even Johnny Pole Barn, and you can buy those things individually. I'm showing my age. I used to buy the water traps for $100.
Now they're like 3-4.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's basically just a glass test tube that comes in there and blows around, and they work good. I mean, that's what I had in my old shop in Dexter.
It's a good water trap, if you will, that to remove water has the first part of it swirls the air, kind of slings it like a tornado out as it's flowing through there to where it just kind of collects against the plastic wall on the inside of the bowl. And then the white filter or the filter ahead of beyond that as it's exiting the bowl area is what grabs the remainder of.
I watched a video on it
some of
earlier
that.
today. Everyone on the video was calling it the Venturi effect.
The Venturi.
Yeah, that's actually incorrect. You know how that glass bowl actually works?
Tell me, Gary.
It's magic. That's how it works.
Well, it's close to it. Very, very quickly. That's why a majority of today's big shops,
Yep.
they implement what they call a refrigerator dryer. And when people start to dissect that, and basically what it's doing is it's taking that water initially from the heat of the day or the humidity pumped into the to the compressor, whether it's a piston or a screw style. It goes to that, and it fast chills it so that it grabs the water at that point and then sends it down. So it's a cooling factor. All shops have to deal with this, and that's why if they're finding themselves with a water trap within 25 feet of the compressor, they're not doing themselves any good, because it's still hot. It's sending its way through the rest of the shop, and by the time it gets to the gun, it does what it's supposed to. Now, that's why most of these things like the DAD 500 and the new DAD Pro, they're set up within feet of the booth from where you're going to spray.
Cool.
That way, it's the insurance policy, if you will, that grabs any part of the dirty air that's left.
So let's say that I buy a DAD or the new one, and I pay X amount of dollars. Well, I notice it's got that water trap, it's got the oil trap, and it's got the desiccants. It's basically two little tubes and then this one big tube. Then, you go to like my buddy's pro shop down the street. He's got three little test tube looking things and then the big desiccant. When I was looking online, 99% of them I see are sold the other way. What's that third test tube thing? What is it and what's it for?
In most cases, the third one in the row before the desiccant is the carbon filter. It's basically, it's for fresh air breathable. Okay. It allows you to be able to breathe off of the compressor.
Okay.
And now there's a lot of things that are called grade D qualified. You have to qualify a shop to properly do that, to properly breathe off a compressor, because obviously there's issues with compressors. If they get too hot, they can actually throw carbon monoxide. So basically that third stage, if you will, is the carbon stage. It's just freshening the air.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of other
taking
things.
The stank out.
That's
of it.
Exactly right. There's a lot of things that go into that to make it grade D air qualified. So the inlet of the compressor has to be fed by outside air. You just can't stick that into its own room and have the filters breathe in that air. There has to be a connection, whether it's stainless or flex tube to a PVC pipe, or stainless all the way out to fresh air. You have to draw it in from outside, and you have to be careful where you put it, because you certainly don't want it outside where a diesel tractor trailer might be sitting there parked for hours.
Or exhaust for your furnace or something like that,
Yes.
and the wind blows it right down the tube. The cool thing about that system is, let's say I paid the $1,000, and I go, I don't need that damn fresh air, and I rock it for a year, and I'm saving my tools and I'm saving my rust out. The cool thing is you can just turn around and buy that charcoal filter and add that on, and then spray fresh air later in life.
For yourself or just for the gun? What are you referring to? For the individual to have?
For a guy in a shop or in a pole barn.
Okay, so I highly suggest someone gets a professional to make sure of that hookup.
Okay.
You just don't want to start breathing air off of a compressor. You just don't. To everyone out there in the world, it could be very dangerous if it's not done properly. Now, when you saw it at another shop with the third one, that's already been done.
Yeah.
So to get there has to be a lot of series of checks.
Okay.
Checks and balances to make
you
sure
work
it's
for
right.
OSHA now?
No.
Okay.
But I tell you what, I want to make sure that everyone's going to live when we're doing stuff.
You put a carbon monoxide detector on them too?
And I tell you what, I know several people that says anyone that wants to breathe off a compressor is nuts.
Yeah.
They truly are nuts. But if it's done properly, and everything is set up properly, it can be very proficient. I got guys who've been using it for years.
Yeah, I have my air by a third-party test every year, have for 30 years or whatever. And like at my own shop, like it came back medical grade air even without a dryer. Yes. And I was running the 4-chamber DAD, but we had a couple little tricks of how we were doing stuff and controlling some water that I can't really talk about on this one.
I understand, but I will also tell you that at this point in time, Devilbiss does not sell a breathable system, and there's reasons for that.
Yeah,
but they had produced them in the past, and they did very well. At this point, they just don't produce.
What's the new DAD 500? Let's say I wanted to go higher up. What's the big boy called?
So
now?
the DAD 500, to educate people, is the original to this day. So easy to work on. You have a drop. Once it's depressurized, the protective cage drops real quick. then we just drop the bowl, and then we change the filter. Okay, that's on both the first 2 stages. The hard part of a DAD 500 is draining the beads.
Yeah.
Basically the desiccant beads. So basically you take the cap off the bottom and then just let the beads drain off of there.
Put them on a cookie sheet
And then
heat them up.
no, you throw them away and then put new ones into it. Because, by the way, those beads still might have a little bit of oil residue.
People
it's
do it.
nasty.
Have you ever, it smells like death.
Oh, it's terrible.
Like
the
death
cheap
smells
Tightwads.
better than when
Yes.
people recook their desiccant beads.
But you can absolutely buy a kit that
Yeah.
comes with all 3 setups and do it. Now, the difference between going from that to a DAD Pro is that the new DAD Pro utilizes the CT30 camera.
Do you guys really call it the dad? Or
Yes, everybody calls it
really?
DAD.
Okay, I thought
Yes.
we invented that stuff. All right,
No,
I'm
everybody-
pissed now. I'm
everybody
going to call it the
shortens it.
DAD now.
You know, I've known it for so long as DAD or just DAD
Yeah.
that I truly don't know what it stands for.
yeah.
I don't know what DAD stands for.
Devilbiss Automotive something. I don't know. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
But I could stray easily.
Yeah.
But anyways, the new DAD Pro will have basically a desiccant with a drop-in bag. It's basically a desiccant in a bag. The bag acts also like a coalescing filter.
Yeah.
So it's so much easier to replace. You just remove the top bolts.
I never thought the
pull it.
old ones were hard to replace, especially you guys had the weird bag that looked like, I thought I was like a pastry chef where it'd come down, it'd be a point, you'd cut it.
It's not so
No.
much that it's not difficult.
Okay.
But on the older ones, before they actually put some coatings on, you could have it glued shut because of the rust,
Oh, yeah.
the water, and
Well,
everything else.
another cool thing is, and again, you know, you and I take this for granted, but well, how do I know when the filters are bad? You guys had the cool little stickers, and you could walk up and you go, "Oh, this color it's mint. This color it's neutral. This color is bad."
It's time to
and
change.
it even said it, so you didn't have to like, "Oh, it's 5,000 miles for an oil change," or you know, and
Yes.
what month was that?
So there's a detector. There's a little eye.
Yeah.
If you know what you're talking, exactly that.
Yeah.
And that is
I
the
like
part
that.
shows when and it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still very much there.
that was
And
cool.
you still have that, by the way, on the DAD Pro. And by the way, the other thing the DAD Pro eliminated was inside the tank of the DAD 500, there were filters to keep the desiccant beads from going downstream or upstream.
Yeah.
Now, those could
You don't like
deteriorate.
them to go through your hose.
No,
and
sir,
stuff
you don't
and-
want it to cause problems.
Yeah.
So you get the ability to eliminate, not worry about having to get to those, because to replace those is a process.
Yeah.
You would have to take everything apart and then unscrew them and put them back in. The AD Pro does not have that anymore because the desiccant is in the bag.
Yeah.
You don't worry about it. You pull it out, you put it in.
Well, I love Devilbiss. I could talk to you about Devilbiss and paint guns all day long, but I
Absolutely.
actually have a couple other questions for you from the Norton line.
Oh, sure.
And one of the things I wanted to bring up is that, you know, in every body shop, we call them red and gray Scotch-Brites. I know you guys call them maroon and all that stuff. But the gray Scotch-Brites have always been around 600 grit, and they can differ depending on model or manufacturer. And then the red were always around 400. And I always hated priming. And again, if you're using UV or water, you might be able to prime over 400. But like with a lot of urethanes or even polyesters or whatever is, you know, they didn't want you to prime over 240. You wanted to be that 150 to 240 range. And it always pissed me off that we would use a Scotch-Brite to scuff hard to reach areas.
Right.
And it's like, but this is 400 and we're and it's like, and you know what all the old school techs would say? Well, it's better than priming over something unsanded, isn't it? And I'm like, well, you got me.
Yes.
So I actually dug through my garage, actually not my shop, my garage, and I brought out this little guy here.
Very much well made.
The Norton Soft Touch. Is this a big seller on the street?
That is a very good seller, and
Okay.
obviously we put the grit on the backside, and that one's going to be the more of the coarser.
But
we have the micro fine as well. But we've just one up that just recently within the last year. We call it flexible film, and it's a phenomenal new product that comes from 400 up to 1,500 in sheets, or from 1,200 to 3,000 in discs.
What's up with the two numbers? It says I've got the coarse one here.
Yes.
You know, they do make, like you said, I got the 12180. They make a 32400, a 46, an 8,000. Does that mean this is somewhere between 120 and 180, or is this a wet dry thing? What is this
Very
about?
good. It's a wet dry thing. So the higher number would be if you were doing it with the wet, being
Okay.
wet, with water. It's just going to be a little finer.
Okay.
Makes it a little finer to use, and obviously being dry is the coarser number.
So I can use this thing wet or dry.
Yeah, that's why we call them sponges.
Yeah, I mean, this thing right here, and again, we use all the grits.
Mm-hmm.
And my only complaint, and maybe somebody back in Norton could, we're getting older, man. And every manufacturer does this. What grit it is too small for us. I come in with a Sharpie and I write on the damn things.
Nothing wrong with that.
But I mean,
because we're all there now.
I do cut them up and use them, because a lot of times I can quarter them. But the sweet thing is when you use them dry, people go, well, they clog too fast. Well, all I do is I take a blowgun and just, because I'm scuffing, and then a lot of times I'm using this for final prep. So when I'm sanding, I don't care if it's a Scotch-Brite, a Norton, or sandpaper. On my final, a lot of times I got a blowgun in my hand as I'm sanding because I'm doing that final once over just to make sure it's right. But this is a great product right here.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Gary. And the Norton Abrasive line has a whole catalog full of good stuff. And we have a good, better, best syndrome, if you will. We don't have a whole, we've gotten away from a whole bunch of different types of sandpaper, if you will. So now we have Gold Reserve as the good. We have A275, everybody known as champagne in the day.
What's
and
Norton's top dog?
Dry ice.
Dry ice. So if I wanted to buy the most expensive, best performing top dog that Norton has, what is it called again?
It's called dry ice.
Okay,
A975.
And what's below that?
That would be the A275, which is the champagne, the brown.
Okay.
So what you're dealing with is ceramic with the A975.
Okay.
Which is just the way they developed it. It's done electrostatically. So in other words, as the paper's coming across, those grits actually jump up to the paper versus being applied from above. So they jump up, and that way the mineral or the grit, if you will, which is ceramic, stays to a point, stays consistent. And therefore with ceramic, once it fractures sharp. It doesn't really fracture dull. Now, in some cases, some people don't care for that.
Yeah.
All right. That's why we have a 275, which is a heat-treated aluminum oxide, which is basically a fancy word for a tempered product. It's heated up.
Do you sell another economy line below that?
And that's Gold Reserve.
Okay, Gold Reserve.
Yes.
Is that the three main lines?
Yes, both A975 and A275 ceramic, if you will, dry ice, as well as the gold, we'll call it brown champagne, if you will.
Okay.
Those are on latex back papers, which means a little thinner. Okay, but then we have a more robust. It's called with our beast, we call it the Blaze, if you will, and that's orange. But that's only offered from like 40 up to 400.
I got another question for you. Now, all the collision guys are going to say, no, duh, we've been doing that for years. But there's some old timers and guys in the garage that this is going to blow their mind. Is when I was coming up, it was a known fact that let's say I was painting a single door, you had to have 18 inches of paper, white paper at that, not that green stuff. I needed that white paper coating.
Sure.
I'd have 18 inches all the way around that door, and then I could plastic it. You go into a collision shop today, and a lot of the guys, and I'm not talking about the hack shops, I'm talking about the good shops, is they'll have that plastic ran right up to the door in their direct spraying.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing that?
All the time.
All right.
Yes, all the time, because it's a lot more flexible to deal with. Today's sheetings, and there are many good ones out there, have a coating on them.
Okay.
So it basically retains and hangs on to the paint and the clear or whichever or both.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And it won't flake off.
All right.
Once it's on.
So we're not having problems like in the olden days where the paint would build up, it would dry, you'd hit the pressure with coat 2 and it shatters off and gets in there.
Yes, a lot of guys love to back tape, as you know, with that terminology, exposing the masking tape, and then just let the sheet, the plastic sheeting drift across it, then use a razor blade.
We're gonna have comments that say bullshit. I've been,
of course.
And this is not new. This is not 2024 technology. This has been going on for a long time.
Years.
I mean, the cool thing is about the plastic, faster, cheaper,
easier.
Yeah, easier.
Yes.
And it's
cheaper, especially.
Yeah, cheaper, faster
more
is a good way. And it's not faster, cheaper, and then the car's taking the hit on quality. It's the same quality, but it's cheaper and faster.
Paper costs money.
Yeah.
And especially the better products, the poly-coated stuff to make sure it does the job. And today's sheetings, they are just so well engineered with the coatings that they're put through to allow you to do exactly that. Basically cover the vehicle like a bag and just cut away what you need to show. Now, you'll never eliminate all of masking paper because in certain areas you require that. It just needs a little bit more robustness, you know what I mean? But in most cases, especially a quarter panel or a door or a fender or something like you're doing, that can be easily obtained by using sheeting, and so much more efficient. There's a lot more efficiencies just to get the job done quicker. Time is money. Time is money.
Awesome. Well, hey, I there's a ton of good knowledge here. I wish we had another hour and a half with you. We'll definitely have you back on because there's so much stuff that we would like to talk about. I want to say thank you to Mark Cartier for coming on. If you have any questions about Devilbiss or Norton or any other brands that he carries, you can comment down below. We'll get you those answers as soon as possible. But for all of us here at Refinished Media, I want to say thank you and on to the next. Wow, you made it to the end of the video. Thank you so much. If you like what we're doing here, go ahead and click a like. You can follow us. In the future, we're going to release more videos, all on automotive content, so look for us in the future. Thanks for watching.